We are really thrilled about today's event. Really from some of the most beloved and respected brands that we are blessed with here in the Twin Cities. And really have such a variety of experiences to be able to share with us. What are some of the fundamental differences that you see between right now and say whatever back when was, and some of the challenges that that's provided to you, maybe even internally when you're working with leadership or to make big, somewhat what decisions might be considered to be risky? I'd love to know sort of the difference between back then and right now.
I think fundamentally the big shift is if you think about a customer journey that used to be very linear. We reach you here, you have our product, you use our product, and there's sort of that's the loop. There's not even a loop, it's just a similar path. Now it's on us as brands to sort of weave in and out where consumers are and go to where they're at, be it social media or our physical places or where it may be. That's a fundamental change, is the sort of shape of the customer journey.
For the Current, for NPR, for Olive Radio, it's about meeting the customer where they're at, and they're at a lot of different places right now. So we don't really think of ourselves as just a radio station. It's just, we sort of help shape listener experiences that provide value to people for whom our products resonate. And that could take the form of somebody who goes online and digs deep into some sort of artist profile that we have, or it could be as simple as turning on a radio, and you've got to kind of enable all these different opportunities to happen for your audience. And so that's like a radical change from the way media operated in years past. And one of the other things that shifted for us is that when the Current was launched, the idea was that it was a little more like, we will curate an experience for you. And we talked about curation and our host's ability to curate. And it's like, well, now we spend an increasing amount of time reflecting and taking input from the audience to let the audience kind of curate the experience for each other. And so that's sort of moved, but one of the great questions we have is like, how far should that go? You know, and when do we step in and continue to curate versus step back and let the audience kind of dictate where the programming is going?
For me, it's about humility and empathy. So being humble as a brand to learn and to grow and to invite guests in. I think one of the things our new CEO has brought to the company is a lot more empathy for the guest. And by doing that, we're being humble and saying, will you invite us into your home and allow us to learn from you and to understand what your needs are and what your wants are so that we can design a better shopping experience and a better, and how that propagates to us as a better app experience. And I think in the past, 15 years ago, we might have been more of, well, we are going to set the trend for that. And now it's more of like, let's set that trend together, which is, I think, just certainly a more fulfilling way to do things when you're actually making people happy.
I think marketers are really good at talking. I think we all have an opportunity to be better listeners. You know, because I think that truly is where, that to me is marketing today. It's not what we say, it's how we listen, and then how we let them know that they're being heard. You know, it's just like a person who walks into a party, right? And, you know, the way that they influence isn't by just, here I am and I'm really cool. It's more like, tell me about you. And you always walk away from those experiences thinking, oh my gosh, I love that person. I really don't know about them, but I got to talk about me for 10 minutes, right? And so I think if we think about marketing like that also, how do we truly listen to what our consumers are saying and actually listen? I think it's very easy to pick out what you want to hear based on the agenda in your head, but I think that the best people do it who really do listen and then are able to pivot. That's the other thing that I think is a huge difference. I think a lot of companies are really good at going and moving fast, right? You hire a lot of type A, let's do this, we're gonna knock it out, we're gonna crush it. I think we're very bad at, oh my God, we got this kind of input, we should probably pause and maybe make a change of course. I think that is a very harder skill to hone and get comfortable with, because it doesn't feel like you may, you know, it's very easy to see the finish line. It's harder to see it when it changes and maybe moves behind a tree, and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So I think some of the classic marketing like traits and behaviors that we wanted 15 years ago, we actually don't want today.
What I just heard was interesting, a couple of words really come together in there. Empathy, and listening. Listening is sort of an outcome of empathy, right? You have to want to know. Prior to all of this, was there a cockiness? Yeah. Were we not listening? Yeah.
I think we all, I think we all, I shouldn't say we, I have made the mistake of thinking, I'm smarter than that consumer. I know what they want. They may not know what they want, all right? I hear that. I still hear that. They don't know what they want. Well, yeah, they do. They live their lives.
I can speak specifically for Cartwheel. We were always pretty humble because we were always about to get axed, to be honest with you. I mean, Target was ready to cancel our program a number of times prior to launching, and so for us, it was life or death as to whether or not we were going to succeed. So we were humble from the beginning, and as we've grown and become more successful, I think the challenge has been to keep it that way and not to say, well, that's how we've always done it.
We launched gluten-free Cheerios this past year that you may or may not know about. But it took a ton of technical skills and work and kind of sweat to get that going. And it was a huge proud moment for a lot of people within the company. Well, then you may remember also, probably 2 to 3 months in, we had a recall because we had an issue with actually our shipping system and where some flour got into our boxes. And it was devastating for us. And devastating, it was the first time I had seen a recall. It's obviously devastating from a volume standpoint and a sales standpoint, but it was really devastating personally for people because people were so invested in that, and we had actually invited so many members of the celiac community into our headquarters when we were actually creating the product. And I was so proud of that team because in the past, what we would do with a recall is we would send our corporate comms people out there that are super robotic, you know what I mean? And I can't comment, you know, we're really sorry this happened. And instead we had the president of our cereal division write a blog and actually say the words, I'm embarrassed by this. I'm so saddened by this. And then we actually sent team members out on the Cheerios team and flew them around the country to meet with different celiac communities that we had previously met with to personally apologize. And so that to me is a great evidence of humility. That to me is great evidence of we are all in this together. And we are human too. We make mistakes, and when we do, we own up to it and we apologize. And so I was proud of those guys for doing that.
And did you then get a break? Were you forgiven? And
well, it was interesting because I think rather than us then go out and say, you know, kind of come back to us and love us, they actually did that for us. Like they were advocating on our behalf. So it was amazing to see that.
You know, in that particular story, that's interesting too, because I think a lot of, you know, whether it's in the sustainability world, I think a lot of consumers sort of wince a little bit when companies try and greenwash themselves, right? You've got the Petroleum Institute talking about green energy, and, you know, there's a lot of different things like this where I think the consumer just sort of waves an eye. In the world of, like, gluten-free, right, you're talking about having to build a $500 million plant just to be able to create a cereal that a very small number of people who have celiac disease, and is the temptation to say, we just spent $500 million on you guys to build a plant that works. I mean, there's always some sort of temptation, but at the same time, just to be able to come out and say, hey, we made a mistake, but not gloat about it at all, and just be really human about that.
Be really human and be really specific. That's the other thing that I think they did a really nice job of. You know, actually, that expensive plant, that's not where it happened, right? It actually happened, it was being shipped in a train car. Somebody went down with the railroad. A truck had to come pick up the product from the car, and that's where it happened, that there was actually some kind of dust in this truck. And so, in the past, again, we would have just been like, we have an issue in supply chain. But instead, we actually talked about, this is actually where it happened. And actually, when people heard that's how it happened, well, of course we understand that a mistake could have been made there, and human error occurs. And so that was an interesting thing, too, just to be actually so transparent on the actual, what exactly was the issue.
How do you get the voice out from just marketing or PR to involve more voices across the organization. Do you have any sort of anecdotes to share about
I
that?
think that's a great point, and it's ultimately who your brand ambassadors are. I mean, your brand ambassadors can ultimately be your customers. I mean, you have people driving around town with your bumper sticker on. That's a big deal. They're doing the work for you to a certain extent. I don't know if a lot of people are driving around with 3M bumper stickers.
The purple one.
Yeah, soon. But you're right. So that was a big shift for us. Is who's out in front and center. So and you work with the newsroom at 3M. It's who we have as the face of 3M, and it's a massive variety now. It's a broad variety from our scientists, who many of which are young millennials and incredible young women who are doing these things that I can't even fathom. So I meet with these people and see what they're working on. But it's getting them out front and center and having them be authentic. So there's not a lot of scripting. It's talk through what you do. And what the beauty of the scientists at 3M, they love to talk about impact. So they talk about how they build sensors, not because it's cool technology, but because they have children, and when their children go to the hospital, the sensors, they don't want them to rip off their little skin. So it's marrying the impact of the product, but also with who the messenger is. That's a massive shift for us.
A couple of years ago, we started a college contributors program where, interested young music journalists from around the state, from colleges, started coming on board as, kind of as stringers. But, with our digital product, we can go as deep and wide as we want to, basically, because it's your choice if you read that story or not. Whereas the radio station is moving in a linear path, and we have to be a little bit more cautious about what we program on it. But online, we can get a lot more creative and a lot more wide-ranging. And that bringing 10 new sort of late teen, early 20-something voices to our blog has definitely infused this new energy into the content that we cover and the way we cover things. And now the last couple of people that we've hired digitally on our team have come out of that program, basically. For us, it was kind of, at first it was a little like, well, I don't know, do we trust them with an NPR product if they're only in college, and we had to say, yeah, let's do it, because our audience is not all aging out with us. Our audience, we're bringing in new audiences all the time.
We actually had team members, store team members, headquarters team members communicate the launch of our Tom's for Target brand. And so it was, let's give that voice to the people that are our brand.
Controlling the brand, don't sway 3 degrees that way, because that's not part of our brand. In all this, in this sense of broader participation, you open up yourself to a perceived sense of risk. And if you want to introduce sort of the Prince story thread, which each of you have.
Yeah, that was an interesting day. We're an iconic brand in the cities. And talking about brand ambassadors, when you start looking at Facebook and having someone say, who the hell is 3M and why are they doing this? And then you see customers of ours and employees of ours supporting us and backing it up. Actually, 3M means Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. Of course they're going to talk about this. It's their state, it's the icon, it's two icons, sort of. So it was really cool to see that reaction. We didn't have to do anything. And there were some people internally who said, maybe we should take it down when you start to see that negative response. I'm like, you can't do that. You can't take it down. You have to own up to what you've done and let this ride out. So
it was a shock and a stunning moment for all of us as individuals who had experiences going to Paisley Park, getting to watch Finding Nemo on a screen while he makes you wait for 4 hours to see him. And, we wanted to just honor his legacy. So we didn't think anything about we thought about the audience and we thought about ourselves. We didn't think about that the audience was going to mushroom. We had no idea what was going to end up happening. We covered the news. We sent Andrea out to Paisley Park, and I remember her being on the air with Jade, our midday host, and she broke down. She started weeping on the air, and it was incredibly powerful because it was her being very human.
It is funny when people know who's behind the brand, there is a lot more softness, and there's a lot. What we want is feedback. It's not that we don't want you to be critical. It's that we want to make our product better because we love it and we want you to love it as well.